Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. So, today I am excited to talk to you about a topic that I think, and a lot of colleges think, is really crucial and can be crucial for college admissions. And this topic is kind of what I think like the opposite of a lot of factors like ACT, SAT scores, grade point average, um, even essays. And the topic I want to talk to you about today is that of teacher recommendations and the actual value of teacher recommendations. Because if you have a junior, or if you're watching this and you are a junior in high school, the time is now to start thinking about, who am I going to ask to write my college teacher a letter of recommendation? Not, at the very end of the year or in the summer or, at the beginning of your senior year. And so I think there's an appropriate way to think about this, to ask teachers, and then there are things to not do. And I thought I'd hop here today, actually. I actually have a long list of how to ask teachers for letter of recommendations. And this really comes from the heart because, even before I helped kids just specifically with college admissions essays, what I was a high school English teacher. And I loved it when kids, if done the right way, and with the right intentions, would ask me to write them a letter of recommendation. And I was looking through, I have this folder, I have this big stack of letters of recommendations that I wrote from, over 15 years ago. It's in my Nutri High School folder, and I'll never forget my English teacher mentor. She is still teaching there, who had almost like templates, which really helped structure and I think produce some super effective letters of recommendation. So let's talk about three main components today. This is going to be a fairly short live. I will later try to capture some of these and add some comments. It's difficult. It's like writing on the the chalkboard or the whiteboard when I would be reading an English class discussion. So number one is, who are you going to ask? And a lot of students immediately think they should ask teachers where they got an A in the class. Well, that's not always the case. And I hate to say it, but an A now, I don't think holds as much weight and is seen differently given a variety of factors. Number one of that being grade inflation, like they used to, back in the day. So number one, don't necessarily choose who's going to write your letter of recommendation based on what classes you got an A in. Instead, think about what that teacher can say about you. Think about how the good things that teacher can write those things in a letter and how they relate to the other parts of your application. So I think the key is to be strategic in thinking about, who are you going to ask? So step one, write down, who am I going to ask, or who is my son or daughter going to ask to write their letter of recommendation? Or sometimes kids need 2 letters of recommendation. And what is that teacher going to say that's going to really nicely balance out other parts of your college application? So I know a lot of times high school counselors can write these letters, and I often question, well, how well do the high school counselors really know the student? Now, of course, sometimes they know them very well, but more oftentimes than not, if you're a high school counselor and you have a caseload of over 50 students and you're not seeing them every day like a teacher does, is that going to produce the best letter of recommendation? And again, sometimes yes. So number one, who are you going to ask? And in guiding those thoughts, what can this teacher actually say about you that's going to help the rest of your application? There's a lot there to really think about. And so I think this is super important for students to think about now, instead of 2 months from now when it's final exam time and it's almost the end of this school year. So what do you do, students, if you have a teacher that you really like, but you're sure if they're the best person to write a letter of recommendation for you? Well, you can do a couple of things. Number one, is this teacher a current teacher? And if so, how can you start to just show up better in class? Well, you can participate more. You can ask more questions. You can go and see the teacher, during their free period, before school, after school. So if you've identified a teacher you really respect, you really look up to, but you're thinking, maybe they don't know me that well. Start now. That's why I wanted to do this now. And I'm gonna write more about this in the newsletter. Start now. Number two, to genuinely build that relationship. A lot of students ask, well, Mrs. Haskell, can I ask a teacher that I had back from freshman year? And again, it depends on the situation in which that teacher knew you and how well you've kept up that current relationship. Oftentimes, colleges want to see, teachers from sophomore year, junior year. But if there is a phenomenal teacher from freshman year, start to rebuild that relationship now, right? So that that teacher is validated and has specific examples of how they can write a letter of recommendation for you. And so here's my third and final point, and then I'm going to give you like a story, something that a couple of situations when I was a teacher. So number three, here is what I think is really helpful. You can provide the teacher that you're asking to write a letter of recommendation, you can provide them with supporting information. What do I mean by that? Let's just say, this teacher was your English teacher or social studies teacher, and there were 25 other kids in that class, right? It's just that one teacher who's leading the discussion, leading the homework, teaching you, but there are a lot of other kids. It can't hurt, and actually, I think it can really help for you to provide 3 to 4 bullet points for that teacher to reference when they're thinking about you, to reference when they're thinking about what they're going to write. And what will make it so good is to reference when they're trying to think of specific examples as to, how you showed up in that class or what positive interaction you had to really contribute to the class. Go ahead and provide your teacher with that information. I can almost guarantee that information will help your teacher, will help your teacher write a better recommendation, will help your teacher write a faster letter of recommendation. So for example, let me tell you what I mean. I would often have, juniors come up at the end of the school year, whether I had them sophomore year, teaching English, or that past junior year, and say, Mrs. Haskell, would you please write me a letter of recommendation? Usually there was really good rapport there. However, when the student came up to me and said, Mrs. Haskell, will you please write this letter of recommendation, and had a couple of bullet points either printed out or in an email, and they said something like, I will never forget the discussions we had in your class, specifically, let's say it was a sophomore, when we were talking about Holden, Caulfield, and Catcher in the Rye, and to what extent are teenagers responsible for their own mental, well-being. I'll never forget that discussion, Mrs. Haskell. And I was always shy to participate in class. And after that discussion, I never put my hand down. Or, I had one say, you gave me a C, and you gave me a C, and you gave me a C. And then he said, actually, one day I stepped up and took responsibility, and the verb you gave me turned into I earned. And if it wasn't for calling me out on X, Y, and Z about my writing, I would have never improved, right? Or, I have a lot of stories here. So my point is, golden tip number 3 for teacher recommendations. Go ahead and write out specific points for your teacher, right? And I am almost going to guarantee they're going to welcome that, as to how they can really help highlight the best of who you are, so that when colleges read through those letters of recommendation, what the teacher says is specific, they can picture it, and more importantly, the characteristics that the teacher is writing about align nicely with other parts of your essay, whether it's your activities list, the classes that you did take, and of course, your college admissions essays. So I love this topic. I could talk more, and I probably will. I wanted to hop on in here this week. I can't believe it's already Thursday. And if you have any questions about teacher letter of recommendations, feel free to message me here on Facebook or on LinkedIn to leave a comment. I know this is also running on my YouTube channel. Of course, you can always send me an email at amy@totalwritingenrichment.com. And again, I want to emphasize how the time is now, parents and students, to really start thinking strategically about who would be the best teacher or teachers to write letters of recommendation. Because if your student or students, I never know who's watching this, right? Who am I talking to? It's mostly parents. If your son or daughter, if your student isn't exactly sure, and believe me, I know how this goes. Now is the time to start building a genuine relationship, to start, fostering a professional rapport with your teacher so that they clearly know who you are. So, more to come, and I will dive into further detail on how to ask your teacher for the perfect letter of recommendation so that you get accepted to college. If it really came down to your teacher recommendation, why not have yours be among the best? So the colleges say, yes, we want this student without a shadow of a doubt. So if you'd like to sign up for my newsletter, you can go to my website and there's a box to throw your name and email in. I'd love to have you because I do take a deeper dive on some of these topics in that newsletter. So thanks so much. Have a great day, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.